This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Daring Media Network.
Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions, where the nights are long and the truth cuts deep. Voices rise against the tide with clear intentions, in a place where freedom never sleeps. Echoes of the past in the halls of tomorrow. The light will chase away the whispers of sorrow. Stand tall, never bow, the fight's just beginning. With every word, the fire keeps on spinning. Back along and got a message for the nation. Raising up the flag with no hesitation. Through the storm, the fire burns bright. On the edge of reason, we defend our rights. Whoa.
Welcome back to the land of bourbon and bad decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show, live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show, or maybe you're checking this out later on youtube.com/@the Tyler Morgan Show, or maybe you're just happen to be listening to this on the podcast, wherever free podcasts are available for rent at incredibly high prices, because, screwing people out of their money is, something that's not necessarily fun. But anywho, before I get into the wild and craziness of this week, let me tell you all about coffee. Yes, coffee. Why is this not clicking? There it goes. Yes, coffee. I know I'm a fan of the tasty adult beverages, like the ones above my head, but the thing that gets me going every day, I'm smacking my mic around here, is coffee. I drink it all the time at work, at home, and I just enjoy it. But my favorite coffee comes from American Pride Roasters. They have quality coffee from sources around the world, and they have such great blends of, whether it's just traditional coffee flavored coffee like I'm a fan of, or maybe you're into the more fancier flavored coffees, like the blueberry donut hole type coffee that's with the Burr Hamilton. So many great flavors of coffee. Check them out today at their website, aprcoffee.com. Like I said, if you are a fan of the coffee flavored coffees, maybe try the George Washington or the Calvin Coolidge blends. Maybe you're a flavored coffee person who likes to have a little coffee with dessert. I said, there's the Burr Hamilton, the At the Mic blend. I think that's what it's called. But there's a macadamia nut one. If you're into macadamia nuts, that one's made and named after my buddy Keith Malinak, who really loves macadamia nuts and macadamia nut coffee. Check out all the flavors that they have if you're into that sort of thing. Or check out the coffee drops, the little hints of little like chocolate. No, I'm not going to say almost like a chocolate chip, but with coffee in it. So check all that good stuff out. APRcoffee.com, because American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. All right. So to get things started with the world going insane over Israel and their horrible, detestable treatment of Gaza and the Palestinians, because Israel can do nothing right. If Hamas or Hezbollah out of Lebanon launches a rocket attack and Israel locks onto that launch position and they run a counter fire mission, they usually end up sending mortars or their own rockets into places where innocents be. Now, why is that? Everyone gets all boo-boo faced and butthurt over it. Why would Israel intentionally launch rockets or mortars or missiles into, say, a schoolyard or at a mosque, at a high-rise apartment. Why would they do that? Could it be that Hamas and Hezbollah are really, really good at using Palestinians and the Lebanese as human shields? Yes, that's right. Something that, to any signatory of the Geneva Conventions would know, is illegal as F. Have to catch myself before I say something dumb, because I try to keep PG-13. Try, which implies that there's occasional failures. But so Hamas has constantly been bringing devastation on Palestinians since October 7th of 2023. So for well over a year and a half. Well, people are beginning to get sick of it in Palestine. Say in Palestine, the Palestinian territories of Gaza and the West Bank. The MSN all right, Raleigh News and Observer. Palestinian Authority president issues warning to Hamas. So Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas recently called on Hamas to release all Israeli hostages, disarm, and give control of Gaza to the Palestinian Authority. He accused Hamas of giving Israel justification for military action and urged the group to become a political party under Palestinian law. Abbas delivered his strongest criticism of Hamas since the conflict escalated over a year ago. Abbas said release the hostages and block their justifications. Yeah, because even though Mahmoud Abbas has not always been a friend of Israel, he's at least pragmatic enough to understand why all the attacks in Gaza are happening. It's not those evil Jews just doing evil Jew things. He recognizes that when Hamas starts launching missiles or rockets out of a refugee camp, they are inviting a proportional response upon that refugee camp, regardless of the fact that the world is going to go, oh my God, did you see what they did? Those evil Israelis, they just launched an attack on a refugee camp for no reason at all. That's how the world is. The world does not give a rat's hairy butt if Israel is 100% justified in any retaliation against Hamas or Hezbollah when the attacks are coming from Lebanon. But now Mahmoud Abbas is coming out and he's smacking around Hamas, what happens here? Because Hamas is not going to listen to Abbas. They're not. And I would not be shocked to see Mahmoud Abbas winding up in a morgue, because he has more temerity and tenacity and bigger cojones than anyone else in Palestine and the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian territories to call out Hamas as being responsible for the destruction in Gaza, in the West Bank. Hamas rejected an Israeli ceasefire proposal that required disarmament in exchange for a pause in fighting and limited hostage releases. The group demanded that Israel fully withdraw first and refused to disarm. Hamas also condemned Abbas's harsh language and blamed him for shifting responsibility to the Palestinians. This is how you know you're dealing with retards. This is how you know you're dealing with people who were force-fed lead paint chips. Their parents injected them with mercury, with all the reasons for someone to be brain dead. And that is when you are clearly the aggressor. You are the one who started shit. So much for my PG-13ness. And then you turn around and play the victim when someone gets tired of your bull crap and smacks you back. How stupid does everyone have to be to buy into it? Which, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of anti-Israel, anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish people in the world who looks at what's happening because of Hamas and says, it's Israel's fault. It's them damn Jews over there. Look at them being all Jewy with their silly little hats and their little curly beards. It's their fault that there's aggression, that the poor Palestinians don't have a choice but to fight back. And they don't even get me started on the retarded groypers. Oy. But it is ridiculous, though, that Hamas, well, you're putting this on the fault of the Palestinians. Well, it kind of is, because right now, Palestinian Authority is not the ruling party in the Palestinian territories. They're not. Hamas is. And let's see, who would have put Hamas in charge of Gaza and the West? Oh, the Palestinians. It's Palestinians who are the foot soldiers in Hamas. So again, Mahmoud Abbas is not wrong in saying it's the Palestinians' fault. The humanitarian situation in Gaza has deteriorated amid the ongoing conflict and Israeli blockade. The blockade, imposed early this year, has restricted aid and supplies. Hamas health officials report nearly 1,930 Palestinian deaths since the blockade began. Again, Hamas health officials. Hamas health officials. So you have the aggressor who started stuff and have nothing to gain, or nothing but gain, by telling lies about how bad Israel is treating them. But the authors of this article do not point out that maybe you should take these numbers with the grain of salt, because there's not an independent third party verifying it. It's just, well, Hamas health officials say Israeli airstrikes have targeted civilian locations, including a shelter in Gaza City. Now, again, this is I hit this earlier. when the retards in Hamas use the Palestinian people as a human shield, and they launch attacks from protected spaces such as, I don't know, a refugee camp. That turns the protected place, i.e. refugee camp, into what is known in military parlance as a legitimate military objective. So if you're running your infrastructure out of a hospital, if you have command and control briefings going on in a building shared by, I don't know, the Associated Press, well, normally you couldn't go after a building with the Associated Press in it if Hamas is having command and control meetings in said building. Then, hey, we'll give y'all a chance to evacuate, but this building's coming down, hopefully with them in it. Oh, wait, Israel did that just a few years ago, and everyone got all boo-boo face and butthurt over that. Just like when Hamas, again, uses a schoolyard to launch a rocket attack, and then the school gets hit with rockets in return, or gets hit with airstrikes in return. This, if I may quote Will Smith from the movie Men in Black, if you don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. End quote. The Israeli military says it strikes focused on Hamas and Islamic Jihad command centers. It accuses Hamas of using civilians as shields, which Hamas denies. Of course they deny it. Why would we give legitimacy and admit to committing war crimes in our attempt to kill all the Jews? The United Kingdom, France, and Germany have urged Israel to end the blockade and allow humanitarian aid, calling for compliance with international law. Well, here's the problem. They're dealing with people who don't give a rat's ass about humanitarian or give a rat's ass about international law. They want the humanitarian aid, like the one time when, Israel built a bunch of water pipes and were building, water lines. And then Hamas went and dug up all the new water lines and converted the lengths of pipe into rockets. Abbas said, quote, Hamas has given the criminal occupation excuses to commit its crimes in the Gaza Strip, the most prominent being the holding of hostages. Again, like I said, he's not exactly a friend of Israel. Israel's foreign minister denied politicizing aid and stated thousands of aid shipments entered Gaza during a recent ceasefire. Israeli officials hold Hamas responsible for prolonging the conflict. The foreign ministers of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany recently stated, quote, we urge Israel to immediately restart a rapid and unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza in order to meet the needs of all civilians. End quote. Yeah. The problem, though, has very little to do with anything that Israel's doing. It has everything to do with what Hamas is doing. When Hamas is using the camps to stage and plan attacks or to carry out rocket attacks, and then, now we've got a bead, so we're going to run a counter fire mission on you, and we're going to blow up your mortar tubes, your recoilless rifle tubes, your rocket launch platform where it sits, and there's civilians there. It's not exactly Israel's fault that it's going down the way it is. I've relayed the story on social media because mosques and churches, places of worship, are protected places per the Geneva Conventions. But what happens when you get shot at from inside of a mosque? I will tell you what happens. You will see 3 machine guns that are mounted in the turrets of trucks turn and simultaneously open fire on the window of that mosque where the gunfire came from. There will be no hey sergeant, they shot at us from inside that building that we believe is a mosque. Can we get a JAG officer to clear us to re-engage? No. Did not happen that way. Would never happen that way. At least I'd hope it wouldn't happen that way. That soldiers and leaders on the ground have enough common freaking sense to sort out what is a legitimate war crime, because, you know, are we just shooting at the mosque for the sake of shooting at the mosque? Or, again, is this a legitimate military target? Same goes for the schools in Gaza. The same thing goes for the hospitals, for these refugee camps. The crazy anti-Israel faction of the entire known universe does not care that Hamas, in and of itself, is violating international law and committing war crimes by using these protected spaces as a form of human shield in order to discourage retaliatory attacks from Israel. You will never hear anyone from England, from Germany, from France. You'll never hear a Democrat here in the United States go, well, yeah, it don't look good, but it really you really didn't have a choice but to drop that bomb in the middle of that refugee camp because they just got a rocket attack from there. You'll never hear them say that because they don't care. Israel is good to have as a friend whenever it's relatively peaceful over there. The Democrats don't seem to mind Israel whenever it's relatively peaceful. They might have some, rather, trifling differences of opinion about things, but for the most part, yeah, Israel is fine. But the second the retards who make up Hamas begin doing their bullcrap, and Israel feels compelled to respond proportionately, everyone else just they cannot stand it. There is no room in that world for Israel to be able to defend itself. These are the same people who, here in the United States, if someone is in a high crime area and they purchase a firearm for their protection, and they are forced to use that firearm to protect themselves, and they do so in a full legal manner, the people who get butthurt over Israel defending themselves are the parents of that thug who got popped trying to commit a robbery. And they say, why did they kill my child? What did he ever do to them to deserve that? See, I don't know. Maybe your retarded kid shouldn't have been trying to break into their damn house. Maybe they shouldn't have been trying to mug them on the streets. Maybe if your retarded thug kid would have enough decency or character to not be engaged in criminal actions for whatever reason, maybe they would still be alive. Maybe there wouldn't have been a need to pull a gun and kill your retarded thug kid. Just like if the retarded thugs in Hamas wouldn't do retarded thug stuff against Israel, Israel wouldn't have to drop bombs on their retarded thug heads. I think I should rename this episode as the retarded one. Apparently that is the word of the day tonight. Word of the day tonight. I think I might be retarded. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I'm glad that Mahmoud Abbas has enough common sense to say, hey, idiots, we're bringing it on ourselves because we keep doing dumb stuff. Well, I say we. You keep doing dumb stuff. That's getting us killed. Stop it. And then, turns around and calls everything that Israel's doing criminal, which, again, it's hard to criminalize self-defense. So, yeah. Ridiculousness. All right, so get ready to go into another story here. Oh, so, well, I'm getting this pulled up. I want to talk about this because it's just funny. To me, social media, one of the things I loved about getting on like Twitter is I used to always eschew Twitter. And however, it has given me a chance to be able to interact with people that I'm fans of. I have Twitter friends with, several folks from The Blaze, for instance. And there's a few celebrities who, I don't get a lot of feedback from them, but, I still interact. And, some authors, I love the work of Stephen King. I cannot stand his Twitter account. But someone who I've fallen in love with their books lately is CJ Box. CJ Box he's the creator of Joe Pickett. If you've seen the series on Paramount Plus, was it The Big Sky that was on ABC for a couple seasons? That's based on his book, The Highway. Well, Joe Pickett, if you don't know, he's a game warden. And I saw this story. And I had to ask after seeing the story. So 3 Montana National Guardsmen charged with an elk antler trespassing case via helicopter. So they landed a Black Hawk on private property, in order to grab elk antlers. I mean, can we get any more Mountain West of a story than that? So I see the story pop up. U.S. Army WTF moments. That's who shared it. So when I saw this article, I was like, I tagged CJ Box, at CJ Box author. Is this an interesting sideline from the next Joe Pickett novel? And he liked it earlier in the day, or at least someone from his press office did. And here, just a little bit, like right before I started the podcast, the guy Lord, he quote tweeted, "Yup." So I'm going to be looking forward to that. That if that actually gets worked into a novel, into one of his novels in the future, like the next one that comes out, I will laugh my ass off so hard. All right. So, all right. So next big story. I guess I'll go ahead and knock out an ad here. And I would say pay some bills, but I don't get paid. It's very sad. Yeah, very sad. But anyways, since they started their business, I have had them as partner with the show. I'm glad to talk about them, and they are bluecollarbeardsman.com. Blue Collar Beardsman Beard Oil is beard oil that works as hard as you do. It's beard oil that is handcrafted with the finest ingredients and the finest scents to create a product that keeps your beard or your facial scruff or your mustache soft, supple, keeps your skin from breaking out and itching underneath, and it has a pleasant aroma that is not overpowering and it sticks with you through the day. Now, I know I used to not have any cares about beard oil because I always thought this weird hipster thing. But, when my nephew is putting this company together and, he starts talking about how important it is if you're going to grow a beard out to, it's like, he's like, consider it like having long hair as a woman. You can wash it, sure, but if you don't condition it, you end up with, hair that's, kind of ratty looking. Same thing with beards. You can tell the difference between a well-groomed, well-maintained beard and that mountain man who pretty sure I just saw a nest of field mice wriggling around their beard. It's that unkempt. So, I use their product myself and, keep my beard, nice and soft and supple. That way, the wife is getting a little, lovey-dovey. She's, not like, ew. So it doesn't leave an oily buildup. It has a amazing aroma that lasts through the day without being overpowering. Check them out, bluecollarbeardsman.com. See their full line of beard oils, beard butters, beard wash, beard conditioners, combs, apparel, and don't forget to subscribe. And then if you get their subscription, you will get a special monthly release sent directly to your home. And it's something new every month, and it's great. Love. I have like everything they've made since day one when they started the subscription service. So check it out, bluecollarbeardsman.com. All right. So Jake Tapper is releasing a book. And in this book, he will be discussing how the American people were lied to by the Biden administration and how his mental condition was covered up. Well, Jake, I hope to God when this book comes out and it's officially released, I hope you write it from the position of I could see it. Everyone around me could see it. The whole world could see it. But they denied, and they threatened either through the threat of withdrawing access or using government to harass them. In order to keep the mainstream media from talking about it. I hope that's the route he's going to take. I hope that's what it is, because if he comes at it as as either I was completely naive to this until blah blah blah, that is going to be completely dishonest. He knows it. I know it. I know he knows it. He knows I know he knows it. And it's just, it's not going to be good for him. It's already not good for him. You already have people on the right saying, Jake, are you stupid or something? Because you would attack anyone who brought it up. Laura Trump came on your show, Jake, and you drug her through hell because she made an observation about Joe Biden's mental acuity. Oh, well, you should know better than anyone about diagnosing someone from afar. I mean, look what they say about your father. I mean, your father-in-law. People diagnose him from afar all the time, and you can't possibly do it. She's like, well, I'm not diagnosing him. I'm making an observation because I literally watched him fall asleep mid-sentence. And then when he came back, the train was completely off the rails. He had no idea what he was saying. I really can't judge because my brain does that a lot, and I'm wide awake. Thank God I'm not tired, or else it'd be worse. But yeah, Jake Tapper got so butthurt and defensive over Joe Biden. And I think it really goes back to when during the 2020 campaign, he was doing the interview with Joe and Jill Biden. And he was asking a question. I don't think it was a bad question. I don't think it was an inappropriate question. An inappropriate question. He was trying to ask about the gaffes. I mean, Joe Biden has like a million-year history of making gaffes, getting things wrong, overstating something, understating something, being completely out of left field. I mean, Robin Williams in a 2001 post 9/11 comedy special on HBO was joking about how Joe Biden is the weird uncle who is slightly off whose meds are slightly off, and so you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. So for it wasn't anything new. It wasn't anything unheard of for Joe Biden. And so Jake Tapper was doing what I felt as a conservative who sees a lot of the stuff on the left, and he goes, dude, you handle that so wrong. He asked her a perfectly acceptable and responsible question about Joe Biden's gaffes, about his verbal missteps and miscues. And what happened? Jill Biden, freaking Jill Biden, slapped him down. Nope. We're not talking about that. Nope. Not going to do it. We're done. We're done with that. No gaffes. What did she know, and when did she know it? In 2020, at the very beginning of the campaign, when Joe Biden was still seemingly there for most of it, and she was very, very defensive of, again, the verbal missteps and miscues. What did she know, and when did she know it? And then now Axios they've gotten a hold of the Hur interview tapes from when he was the special investigator investigating Joe Biden over the classified documents that were in his garage. Donald Trump had them in his bathroom. Yeah, well, Joe Biden had them in the garage. At least the bathroom was an interior room with a locking door that, you could have made the case, met the argument, met the legal requirement for sensitive documents to be behind two locked doors. Because you can lock the outside doors of the building, and you can lock that door, two locked doors. But I digress. So this is from Rob Eno at The Blaze. Media cover-up unravels. Biden's mental struggles confirmed in damning leaked tapes. Axios drops Biden-Hur audio, sparking outrage over media's role in hiding truth. The audio of Joe Biden's 2023 interview with special counsel Robert Hur, long hidden from the public, has finally been released, confirming in the ears of many conservatives what the media and Biden allies had long denied: that the president's cognitive decline was severe. On Friday, Axios' Alex Thompson published the tapes just days before the release of his new book with Jake Tapper, sparking fresh scrutiny of the Biden presidency and the media's role in shielding it. Hur interviewed Biden as part of his investigation into alleged storage of classified materials at Biden's Delaware home in the period between his vice presidency and inauguration as the president's 46th president. Hur cited Biden's mental decline in his decision not to prosecute, writing, quote, Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. At the time, an unnamed Democratic operative called Hur's characterization of Biden beyond devastating, adding, quote, it confirms every doubt and concern that voters have. If the only reason they didn't charge him is because he's too old to be charged, then how can he be president of the United States? End quote. The sentiment was short-lived as Democrats and allies in the mainstream media quickly shifted to defense of Biden after then Attorney General Merrick Garland refused to release either the audio recording or transcript of the interview. Later in 2024, the Department of Justice relented and released the transcript after House Republicans took action. The recording of the interview had never been released until Friday. Earlier in May, a federal court gave the Trump administration until May 20th to explain how it would respond to plaintiffs seeking the full Biden-Hur audio recordings. That legal deadline just happens to coincide with the release of Original Sin, the new book by Axios writer Alex Thompson and CNN's Jake Tapper. In an emergency late-night court filing obtained by Blaze News, the Oversight Project, a key plaintiff in the lawsuit, highlighted this timing. Full disclosure is necessary now. One of the two journalists who apparently has the full tape is Alex Thompson of Axios, the man with a clear financial interest in how the audio is portrayed, given his forthcoming book with Jake Tapper, in which Tapper undergoes a remarkable conversion from having favorably covered President Biden when President Biden was in office to now critically reporting on President Biden. That is from the suit. The filing emphasized that Thompson had reportedly obtained the complete recording, but as of Friday, had released only selected clips, those most favorable to the thesis of his upcoming book on Saturday, or to those most favorable to the thesis of his upcoming book. On Saturday, Axios released what it described as the full recording of the interview. Oversight Project President Mike Howell told Blaze News, the media and Biden administration embarrassed themselves trying to deceive the public about Biden's health. The illegal withholding of this audio tape was election interference meant to protect a failing Biden and then Harris campaign. While we are happy to have fulfilled our promise to deliver the tape to the American people, they deserved it long ago. They now deserve accountability and to answer the fundamental question of who was the president for the last 4 years. In 2024, some members of the media, including senior legal analyst Eli Honig, argued that withholding the project was appropriate to protect prosecutorial integrity, which, okay, if he had already made the decision to not prosecute, that means there is no prosecutorial integrity to withhold. There's no prosecution. In a piece entitled The Secret Biden Tape We Shouldn't Hear, Honig argued, quote, as a current member of the media and of the voting public, I would like to cast scorn on Garland for his decision to withhold the Hur Biden audio recording. But as a former prosecutor, I applaud him. We probably won't ever hear the tape, and that's for the best, end quote. Following the unexpected release of the recording, Honig did not initially respond when contacted by Blaze News for comment. After publication, Honig reached out and stressed to Blaze News that while from a prosecutorial perspective, he argued against releasing the tapes, he was a significant critic of the Biden White House in the aftermath of Hur's revelations. Quote, I defended Hur and was so sharply critical of Biden that it elicited a public attack from the Biden White House, Honig told the Blaze. He pointed to a Fox News article from February 2024 in which the Biden White House took aim at him. This is an embarrassingly false assessment by Eli Honig, I don't know, amplified by Kim Delanian, both of whom are smart and can read, but apparently haven't. End quote. Read a quote in the article from then White House counsel spokesman Ian Sams. It would be a terrible precedent for DOJ to release portions of investigative files from uncharged cases, Honig told Blaze News. I'd say the same if Garland had tried to release confidential portions of the Trump investigations. In fact, I am quite critical of Jack Smith for inappropriately putting inflammatory material on the record about Trump right before the election. Honig had been critical of the Biden response to Hur's investigation from the outset. However, other members of the media, like CNN colleague Jake Tapper, Thompson's co-author, appear to be working to rehabilitate their credibility in light of the tape's contents. That response has drawn sharp criticism from conservative media watchdogs. Curtis Houck, managing editor of MRC's Newsbusters, accused mainstream press of hypocrisy and opportunism. All these liberal journalists expressing shock or dismay at the audio being released need to be lambasted and mocked, Houck told Blaze News. This is a blatant covering of one's behind and hoping the public isn't old enough to remember the scorn they heaped at Robert Hur when his report came out. End quote. Houck further lambasted the mainstream media, the sadness and or anger at Joe Biden over hearing him struggle with basic facts about his family is really about that he screwed them out of power in the year of our Lord 2025. And this has nothing to do with contrition, and the public shouldn't fall victim to their sorrow now. Sudden distrust in the last 4 years shouldn't be confused with genuine contrition and apologies for participating in a generational cover up. As more is learned about the operations of the Biden presidency and the institutional cover up of Biden's mental decline, Howell told Fox News that his organization's fight to uncover what happened will continue. Transparency and accountability are how our nation will heal. There is no other path. Yeah. This whole idea that everyone who got butthurt over, Hur's assessment, you are absolutely just stupid beyond all measure. And I'm going to end on that. To everyone who could see it with their own lying eyes and hear it with their own lying ears, who just actively denied it because that other guy is just so bad we can't have him. And then you didn't even act remotely upset when he dropped out of the race and Kamala was just basically, bloop, there you go. Well, the primaries are over. And so, okay, so let all the other states that still have primaries to run, let them run their primaries and cast their votes for who they think should be the presidential nominee. And whoever has the most primary votes, there's your nominee. No, they didn't even get that. Democrats didn't even get that. They just got, Kamala Harris shoved down their throats. And it is ridiculous that the media just watched it happen and for the most part, didn't even bat an eye. All right, so before I go, yesterday afternoon in St. Louis, there were a couple tornadoes, and it's amazing to see the politicization of tornadoes, of natural disasters. It happens all the time, but when it happens, almost my backyard, it gets really just disturbing. So to Fred Wellman, Army veteran, guy who grew up in St. Louis, attacking things like Doge because, oh my God, Doge, because of Doge, there's no FEMA response. There's no, there was no proper warning. Bitch, please. Because I did some research on this whole idea that there was not proper warning because you didn't have the right people working at NOAA anymore because Doge fired them. Currently, the average warning time for, from when a tornado warning is issued until a tornado actually touches down is about 15 minutes. That's pretty good. However, there are factors that can make that a little bit more challenging to hit. such as how quickly is a storm building up power? How quickly is a storm transitioning from just a severe thunderstorm with lightning and hail and straight line winds to, okay, we have the conditions where a tornado could spawn. And even then, a warning does not mean there is definitely a tornado going to happen. It just means you've got all the ingredients to make a taco. So, okay, it's a great analogy. A tornado watch is like a taco watch. You've got the stuff in the pantry and in the fridge that you can make a taco. A tornado warning is like a taco warning. You have cooked the meat and you have it set out. You have the shells laid out. You got all the, you've opened up the cans of, stuff that came out of cans. Your veggies are chopped up. They're ready to go on it. And everything's laid out. You literally have all the ingredients right there. You can make a taco at any time. That is like a tornado warning. The conditions are right. The tornado could happen anytime. So they issue the warning. That is what they did at about 2:30-ish yesterday afternoon. I have so many windows open or so many tabs in my phone from doing research for this. But yeah, they issued it as soon as they had it confirmed that, hey, we have the proper conditions for a tornado, issue the warning. And about 7 or 8 minutes after that, the tornado ended up going through Forest Park, which, if you're not familiar with the St. Louis layout, it's still a ways from downtown. But Forest Park, that's where the St. Louis Zoo is. St. Louis Science Center. There's a bunch of really fancy houses in that area. And, a lot of people got hurt. There were people killed. And Fred Wellman, you want to make this a political thing because, FEMA's not responding. Well, okay. Has the mayor of St. Louis reached out to FEMA? What about SEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency? Have they reached out to them? Maybe activated National Guard unit to go help clean up. Has that happened yet? I don't know if it has or not. And from the sounds of it, you don't know if that's happened or not. But you would rather run your mouth and say stupid things like, the state is run by Republicans and they hate the city. Bitch, the city hates everyone that is not part of St. Louis. Just like everyone from Kansas City hates everyone who is not part of Kansas City, whether you are in the, slightly outside where the official Kansas City suburbs, whether you're just outside what is considered the St. Louis official suburbs, the actual metro area, which that extends all the way out to freaking Pacific, maybe even a little further towards Eureka, Six Flags, still 30 miles away from downtown. But if you're not from there, you're hated by the city. The level of contempt that the city dwellers like you have for the rural Missourians like me, who, when a tornado happens, we don't sit on our freaking hands and wait for the state to come save us. We don't wait for the state or for the feds to show up to provide aid. You know what we do? We had 2007, we had a huge ass ice storm. And in that ice storm, I was without power for a week, Fred, for a whole week. My sister-in-law, her and her husband and her kids, they were without power for almost 3 weeks. They live 7 miles away from us, right off of an actual, a main highway coming into our town. And it took 3 weeks for them to get power on. But you know what we did? We didn't sit around bitch and piss and moan and kvetch about how bad everything was. We came together as a community and we helped each other out. I had a deep freeze full of meat. I had a propane stove that had a pilot light instead of an electric igniter. So I would get home from work. I would stop at our house because we were staying with the wife's family because they had power, or her parents. They had power, so we were staying with them so we could be warm with our kids and keep our kids warm. So I would stop by our house on the way home from work, and I would cook food for, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, for a dozen people. Because we were a community. We take care of each other. When no one had power or running water, say, hey, we ain't got power, but we still have running water because we're really close to the water tower in Stoutland, and we have that gas water heater. You need to take a hot shower. Go by our house, and take your hot shower. Our neighbors had trees down on their property. They couldn't get in and out of their property. I had a chainsaw. I did. I went over with my chainsaw and I helped cut ice-covered limbs from their property so they could be able to get out because, he was elderly and he had his much older mom who lived with him, and he was her primary caretaker. And you know what I got paid for? Know how much they paid me for it? Not a damn thing, because I wouldn't take their money because I was being neighborly. However, he did ask for the chain off my chainsaw, and he took it to one of the local small engine shops, had a second chain made, had both of them sharpened, and brought them back to me and said, here you go. If you won't take money, at least let me keep your saw running for it properly. That's what needs to be happening in St. Louis. Neighbors need to be taking care of neighbors. You don't need to wait for the first responders. You are the first responders. If you have the ability to help others, please go help. But Fred, either shut up or nut up. Throw some gloves on and go help clear some freaking debris. Don't sit as a little keyboard freaking warrior, talking about how bad it is and how Republicans and the rural people in the city or in this state cannot stand the Democrats in the city. The reason we can't stand you is because of the contempt from you people and your dumbasses thinking that we're just a bunch of yokels and that you're so much better than us and that we're backwards in our ways. You know what? We may not be as progressive and forward thinking as you, but you know what? We still know how to take care of our own when bad shit happens. So, Fred Wellman, kiss my ass, glove up, and go do some goddamn work. That's going to wrap it up for the show. Thank you if you tuned in for the entire thing. Got a little pissy there at the end. I apologize. But at the end of the day, that's why I do the show. It's my chance at catharsis. So again, thank you for joining me for my ranting and raving this week. Means a lot to me. If you're new to the show, whether it's on Twitch, please subscribe on Twitch. YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, all that happy crap. Podcast, again, same 4 things I ask you every week. Number 1, please subscribe or follow. After that, please rate this show 5 stars. I'll accept 4, 3 and below. Hit me up on the Twitters, the X's, whatever you want to call it. DM me. The DMs are open. Explain to me why you felt you need to give me 3 or less. If you're cool, I'll be cool and I'll accept your critiques and criticisms. It's how I make my show better. Once you have rated it, please write a review. Say something nice about the show. Yeah. Fluff a little. Don't get carried away. That's all I'm asking. Do not get carried away. Once you have done that, subscribe, rated, reviewed, please share the episode. Send someone you think will love the show. Send someone you think will drive them absolutely bonkers. I don't care. I'll accept whatever listens I get and whatever downloads I get. It's all good for the algorithm. Again, thank you so much for listening. And as always, trying to find all the right buttons here. You would think I would prepare in advance. As always, stay relentless.